Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the breakdown. I'm Tone. It's fantastic to have you here with me once again. And it's not without a sense of irony that last video that I did, we were talking about government accountability. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about something along those lines. If you haven't already heard, Gladys Berejiklian, the Premier of New South Wales, held a press conference on Saturday, but failed to talk about the possibility of a whole state lockdown. How did she announce it? She announced it via a tweet and social media. Why? There are so many people that are really, really, really angry in New South Wales, and with good reason. This is a new low from government officials. Nonetheless, a premier of a state of our country to pull a fast one like this. And I've covered the lockdown stuff for months and months and months, all through last year. And this is one of those things that takes the cake. But what's going on in Sydney right now, they managed to do all of what they've done here in Melbourne and Victoria last year. And they continue to do stupid stuff here in Victoria. Now they've moved to doing that type of thing in New South Wales. Now, if anybody watching this video, or indeed anybody else, if anyone thinks that this trend is not going to continue into other states and territories within this country, you're kidding yourself. This is setting a precedent. I mean, what happened here in Melbourne set the precedent. And it's being trialled in other epicenters, capitals of our states. Remember I said that Melbourne was the beta test. Melbourne was the first place to do the lockdown in the way that it did. And they used that blueprint in cities around the world. We were the first. We were the beta test. What will people accept? In the name of protecting ourselves, in the name of all that is good, what will people put up with without protest? What will they just bend over and take? Well, Melburnians, we took a heck of a lot. The majority of people accepted that it needed to be done because we were told that it would end the need for further lockdowns. Did it? No. And so it set the precedent. The beta test was a successful test of what people will put up with, and they've used it elsewhere. Of course, granted, what they're doing in New South Wales and in Sydney is different in some aspects. They didn't have the Ring of Steel. But look, this stuff's not going to stop. And this is a new low, where the leader of a state will pull a fast one via social media. Not everybody out in the public accesses stuff online. What about all of the older generation who would barely even use a computer? They're not on Facebook. They're not on Twitter. Hey, what about them? When do they get to find out? Oh, tomorrow morning? Or later on this morning? That press conference is going to be a doozy, because it's a fair question to ask. Why didn't you tell us this yesterday's press conference? Why did you come out and let people know that we've gone into a lockdown? The lockdown has already started. It started yesterday, and you didn't tell us at 11 o'clock. Why are you telling us now? Updating us when we should have already been locking down. I mean, laugh because it's a joke, and yet it's not a joke. It's affecting people's livelihoods, their mental state, their ability to deal with things on a daily basis. Can't be up front and tell people what's really coming down the pike. Nope. Got to hide behind social media. Unbelievable. I mean, when I heard this on the radio today, I was actually trying to figure out what they were on about. I mean, all this stuff happened, and what was everyone's... well, if anyone was watching television or listening to the radio, they would have been watching and listening to football or some other sport. I mean, I guess rugby was on as well. They weren't necessarily, they weren't necessarily on their laptops or their phones. A lot of people would have been. And that's how the story got out. Enough people in the younger generations were on their phones or their laptops, computers, and they were checking this stuff out. But I didn't know this stuff until the football was finished. I don't know how many hours it had been out. Like, oh, all of what's happened is so serious, we have to go into a lockdown. Quick, let everybody know. Via social media. You know, they did it on a Saturday. Why? Because there's no talkback radio. There's no hard and fast television media going on. So the scrutiny will come later, but it's already too late. The lockdown's in place. What about for all the people that didn't know the lockdown was in place? I mean, if this virus is such a virulent disease, wouldn't it be pertinent to let everybody know that the emergency means emergency lockdown? Just a question. I would have thought so. Look, guys, I really hope you're doing all right, and I'm speaking to anyone who's watching this video from New South Wales. I hope you're doing all right. I mean, what you've got going on right now, Melburnians have been through something similar. I'm not going to say the same because our states have handled things differently. Our premiers and governments have handled things differently. But we do understand from here in Melbourne, we do understand what kind of feelings you probably will have to this stuff. But this takes the cake. The way that your Premier has handled this in the last 24 hours. But we're thinking of you. I am. I can only speak for myself. I'm thinking of you guys, and I hope you're okay. In previous videos, I've talked about reaching out and contacting those that you know well. You know, making sure that they are okay. And look, here in Melbourne, we are, well, this coming Thursday, we're about to roll over 2 weeks. Now, started off as being 1 week. It was never going to be just 1 week. It's going to roll over into 2 weeks. Well, we're almost done that. I'm predicting now that we're going to roll off into a 3rd week. The number of cases, in quotation marks, is going to justify it, apparently. Our freedoms are being whittled away, and most people are just accepting it. But let me say this. Just before I did this video, I was very, very heartened. I have a positive outlook. There are some people that have had enough. They don't see the justification for what people are being put through with these lockdowns. And there is a pushback. Now, there's been pushbacks in other countries. France is a good example. Go and have a look at what's going on over there. But there are other areas where people are just flat out refusing to follow the government orders. Because government decisions, if they think that they can suppress this deadly virus by locking people down, it's clearly not working. And people are starting to wake up. I hope you are. I hope you're all waking up. I'm speaking to anyone that's watching this video. I hope you're waking up to what they're trying to do. It's about time we woke up. And I'm feeling positive about the number of people that are starting to push back and say, hang on, no. What you're doing is not justified. Give us the data. Prove to us why it's necessary. Oh, you can't. Well, then I'm not going to follow you. I'm not going to obey. Now, just on that, let's just backtrack a little bit. I'm not suggesting that we don't obey laws and rules. Society is founded on those rules, and the majority of them should be followed. I'm not an anti-vaxxer either. But, and here comes the caveat to all of that, what was in the past cannot just automatically be put over to what is now and what will be in the future. I've said many times before, and I will repeat myself here again, just because a lot of vaccines that have come out have been beneficial and have been rigorously tested prior to coming out, just because all of those things have been deemed safe and have data to back that up, does not automatically mean that some magic vaccine or vaccines that have come out, and there are many of them only available in various in certain countries. There's nothing to suggest that you can just blanketly say, "Oh, science. Where's the data?" Well, there isn't any. Well, very little, because it's still being collected. The test is actually happening right now. So, no, I'm not anti-vax. But I'm okay with having vaccines that have been out a long, long time. Obviously, anything has a side effect or has the potential to have a side effect, but a lot of those are going to be known after 20 years. Not 1, 6 months. Nope. So I am interested to see just what results from a lot of these vaccines into the future. I have my own thoughts about just the possibilities of what reactions may come later. And I'm more than happy to take the risk of catching this so-called virulent flu. I'm okay with that. I'm going to take the risk at this point. And just because all of the rules that have already been put in place have been to our benefit does not mean that the things that they've been trying to put through Parliament in the last 10 years, and I'm not just talking about vaccine and virus related stuff now, I'm talking about gender theory, I'm talking about anything and everything that a lot of governments around the world are trying to push through and are successfully putting through. Just because things have been good up to a point doesn't mean that there's no potential for some pretty corrupt stuff to be going on from now on in. Okay? And that's important to understand. What was doesn't necessarily mean what will be. And a lot of people are swallowing this agenda. They're just swallowing the medicine. Here, cod liver oil. Open up, say ah. And they're taking it. It's quite ridiculous to me. What, do you trust the government so much with what's best for you that you'll not question anything? I mean, don't go and actively break the law, but ask why. It is your right to say, hang on, why? Show me the reason why I should comply with that. Right? And that's fair to say that. That's fair to have that opinion. Some don't seem to agree with that. And we're getting two groups of people forming. Those that are doing the bidding of the government, who have been convinced by the government, going to war with those that are conscientiously objecting at this point. Pretty sad. You got sheeple, and you got those that have just managed to get around the outside of the pen for now until they work out whether or not being in the pen is a good idea. And those outside the pen are getting hounded. I'm okay with that. Hound me and hound anyone else that thinks like me. Because what that actually does is prove that we are thinking for ourselves. And I mean, we'll leave it at that. I think we'll leave that at that. That's all that I really wanted to talk about. Just the way that things are being handled with the government stuff, and the new levels, the new lows that they're dropping to in order to do things all in the name of protecting us. I mean, come on. We are adults. We can accept the truth and the facts if you're giving them to us. Give us the reasons. Tell us what's really going on. But you won't. They're not going to give us all the reasons and everything, because the data that they so-called have to justify what they're doing is unverifiable. And a lot of the times it is provable that it's unverifiable as long as enough people who think outside the box and can think for themselves can show, hang on, what you've just told us doesn't stack up. So they're better off not telling us anything of substantial value. And then it's just blind faith and trust that they expect to get from the wider public. And sadly, the majority are, at this point, just following the agenda. That's all that I wanted to really talk about today. I hope you're all well. If you like this video, please leave a like. Share the video to whoever you would like. I'm more than happy for that. That's why I do this. I want to help people just think outside the box. As the name says, break things down before we get broken down by these things. That is the whole point. So, and if you've got any comments on what I've been talking about in previous videos, or indeed in this video, please feel free to leave the comments in there. If you've got something that you'd like me to cover in videos in the future, drop that in the comment section as well, and I will do my best to cover that in future videos. And I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe as well, so that you can keep up to date with anything that I do come out with. And of course, if you do disagree with anything that I've been talking about, again, bring those points to my attention. I will read what you put to me. Just remember that I reason things through. I'm only really open to opinions that are based in facts. Feelings are a secondary thing to facts. But by all means, let me know what you really think. I can handle it. And until next time, thank you for joining me. Take care. Bye for now. and God bless.